Hello and welcome to this video on the Wrestle Wrestling channel with myself, Kieran, and of course, Gareth.
Hello, mate.
Oh, mate, we're here and we are here to discuss Full Gear, and we are bringing you some fresh out of the oven 6 hot takes for Full Gear.
Yeah, not exactly predictions, just things were like, boom, like that sizzle on the barbecue. Um,
Exactly.
and things where it's like, things that could happen. Maybe it's a bit out there. I don't really know how you define a hot take, but it's just, it might piss some people off. It might be something completely unexpected, all that kind
Might
of
be
thing.
some spicy boys.
Yeah, boys.
Boys. But either
Oh,
way, you started
Broden.
off. You started off first in our last video that we recorded, so I shall, in opposite fashion, shall do the same
Okay.
here.
Yeah.
My first hot take, right? It's nothing much. I'm not even going to big it up. Young Bucks should lose to FTR. There we are.
Oh, justify it.
Yeah. Essentially, what they have done over the last month and a bit now, right, is they've had the Young Bucks pay their way out of things that they've created. So they've made a big deal of paying off their damages, haven't they? So
Yeah.
super kicking X person, damaging this particular thing, like whether it's on BTE or on the main show itself, that's what they've been doing.
Yeah.
So they could easily lose this, and to trigger people, they could easily pay their way into gaining another tag team, or even just getting rid of that stipulation and further developing on that story that they're paying their way out of these particular
So
damages that
it's
they're putting themselves through.
it's almost like people are expecting it to be like, oh, it's the Cody thing where he doesn't want to win the title, which I do think is a genuine thing for Cody, given like the criticism Dusty had at times and stuff with that. But then with the Young Bucks, it'll almost play into their character more because then they'll just be dickheads. And then eventually, if Cody does do it, if he turns heel or whatever, you can justify. I don't know whether it's ever going to happen with Cody, but I think the Young Bucks definitely should win the titles at some point. So I do like that. And
Yeah, I
like,
just think it just makes sense. That's what their characters have been doing. Yeah, that's it.
yeah, I do. I'm very much like I'm going to be happy with either team, but I do want to see the Young Bucks win the championships one day. So if that was the justification as a way to get out of it, it certainly goes with their character and stuff. It's quite a simple one. Is that all?
That's all.
Yeah. No, it's fair. It's like it's very simple, but like makes complete sense. It's something which I think would work a lot of people, especially like the people who are already on the Young Bucks are just booking themselves to win all the time, which just isn't true to start with. But they've literally lost every big match they've been in. But yeah, I think that would definitely work a lot of people. And then if you were turning them heel, which I don't know if that's still the plan or what, because the build here has been so weird, but it would definitely make a lot of sense. But yeah, shall I go with my first hot take then, mate?
Go on.
Now, I don't really know if I believe in this one or not, but
Oh,
we're just gonna go with it because it's something which part of me, I don't know whether I want it or believe in it or what. But Cody Rhodes defeats Darby Allin. So there you go. Flip me a little bush,
oh.
right? Get back
Ew.
in, you little vanilla midget, right? No, basically, I think it could because they haven't really been telling that story. The story's there, but they haven't been telling it of Darby Allin facing Cody, but he can't beat him. I think maybe this might be maybe a false dawn for something that might happen in like 6 months or something. We might see
Yeah,
a bit more of a road for Darby Allin to get there.
yeah.
Um, and maybe maybe he embraces a darker side, but ultimately comes out of it the other side because I think he's always going to, well, not always going to be a face, but I think for the short term he's going to be a face because he's too loved to not be, even though there's some things some people don't like him and for good reason, but yeah, so I think this could be a way. It's like we always say it, but like a loss can also almost be better than a win. Sometimes I think like sometimes you can get pushed too hard or whatever. I don't think this would be a push too hard for Darby, but like he's young. There's no need to rush things and stuff like that. And I think potentially, especially again, Cody's also walking this line between is he going to turn heel? If he is, then he should definitely win this. If he's not, then he should probably lose. But if he is going to turn heel, then he should definitely win this like growing cockiness and stuff, and that might be the undoing when Darby does eventually beat him. But yeah, it's just essentially basically they were kind of telling this story, or again, like I say, the story's there, but they weren't really telling it, and that just makes me wonder. Like I don't know, but then we might get to Full Gear, and we might just like really hammer it over your head, like, oh, Darby's not beaten Cody, and then that argument's done. But yeah, that's a little hot take for you there, mate. Basically,
No,
just it will enhance Darby Allin's character more so than he currently is. Really go home on that story, and it's like again, I was speaking about this yesterday, but the whole Omega Okada thing is like he kept losing, but eventually the payoff was so much better, and like this would work a lot of people and trigger a lot of people for sure. But because I mean, the last two times Cody's beaten Darby, people have been angry and like, squashing him. But yeah, but if he's turning face, definitely don't do this. Or if he's staying
amazing.
face, definitely don't do this.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. No, that's cool. No, I mean, to be honest, that is my personal opinion. That's what I want to happen.
Fair?
Um, that's not nothing on Darby Allin. That's just again, it's taken inspiration from something like the Okada make storyline, where I just think you've got more time to develop this story between the two. I
Yeah,
think it's okay in New Japan's context because I think they're very good in telling stories with which are purely competitive. But I think in AEW, they can really do something on a personal level with these, and they
yeah,
haven't really touched upon that with these two yet. So I'd like them to touch with with that side of things. I'd just like the story to really progress and let that be an additional part of the story rather than that being the sole part of the story and that's it.
yeah.
Um, because I think ultimately you're just missing a bit of potential between the two. Because at the end of the day, you've got two very talented guys who can really bring something unique into a
Yeah.
story rather than just saying, right, well, this guy keeps losing and then eventually he wins. And they
The,
do it
yeah.
well, but it's like you could do so much more.
The problem, I guess, with it is I'm pretty sure they're going to do Brian Cage versus Darby Allin for the title afterwards because that's what Taz is very much kind of hinting at. But they equally could do. Cody's been doing his thing of I'm facing all the big guys, and he called himself like it wasn't a giant slayer, but it was something cringy like that because he's faced a lot
No.
of big guys and beaten them and stuff. Brian Cage could just be the next one, and Taz did kind of leave it open ended as you would because you don't want it to be like when Darby wins or whatever. So they could still do that. Maybe Darby then faces Ricky Starks again or something. It's kind of these two, and that's something you could do as well is almost have them have some kind of an alliance against Team Taz where they kind of have to come together to some extent. But Darby's kind of got that underlying thing of I want to beat you one day kind of thing. And that could be a really interesting dynamic that goes alongside that.
Yeah, yeah.
So maybe they could go down that way with Team Taz, and that would be really interesting. So I want that to happen now. I've just convinced myself that it should, even though I came in not thinking. I've convinced myself, and I've convinced everyone watching because I'm right and I'm never wrong.
Cool. Amazing. Okay, let's move on. It's my second point. MJF wins, but there was never an agreement that Wardlow would be joining the Inner Circle too.
Yeah.
Because, so essentially, MJF turns on Wardlow. He doesn't need him anymore. Instead of a bodyguard, he's got a bloody posse.
I mean, yeah.
Um, so this is essentially running with the idea that Wardlow's going to have a big old face run in him running down the Inner Circle, and essentially, right, I'd say the biggest. It's kind of funny saying this. The biggest thing sort of thing you should be doing is look at Braun Strowman when he was doing his best stuff in WWE. Like where it
Yeah.
was like the ridiculous stuff because he was a big boy, Just do that with Wardlow and make
Yeah.
it a bit more personal and make it a bit more story focused, but add those elements in because wrestling fans love those moments and they just add to the story as a whole.
Yeah.
Just think of the bloody packages before the match and all these variety of things and your investment as a whole and your enjoyment on a weekly basis. It would just be a lot of fun. So yeah, it's kind of a weird one because of course MJF within the Inner Circle is a very interesting dynamic. I do think, personally I do see like it. At the end of the day, you don't always have to run with the stipulation that you put down. Sometimes it's just there, like you've told me before,
Mm.
just to add a little extra element to that match to maybe make you second guess, or something like that. And it's purposely there just for that sole reason. But I think to add that in itself. Like, because maybe for MJF to just say, I want to join you in the circle, just outright, and
Mm.
that be that, it's like maybe it's not within his character, but within a match and the format that they've ran with, especially the fact that they've run with a way in which they can not have Wardlow join as well. It
Yeah,
just, I don't know, I just think it could really work out that way. And I wouldn't say this is like entirely out of the realms of possibility. Like, I don't know,
mm.
it is ambitious.
Yeah,
Ho- However, like, given what they've given to us, I don't
yeah,
think it's far out the realms of possibility. So
yeah.
yeah, that's it,
It's
right?
this is a weird. It's a weird match and a weird storyline because like there's no obvious way to go. I'm kind of leaning towards MJF doesn't join the inner circle for whatever reason, even if he wins, which he probably will. Um, but yeah, like because there's various reasons. There's already a split there in a circle. I really want to see Proud and Powerful turn babyface. Maybe there's a way of like teaming them up with Wardlow and such. If there's like a kind of a, it's not really a double turn, but kind of a double split in the two groups and stuff.
Hmm.
There could be something interesting there. I'm not so sure, but yeah, it's just such a weird like match because I just have no idea what's going to happen. There's a lot of ways they could go that make a lot of sense, but I'm always like on the edge of being like, I don't know, they might just do something which makes absolutely zero sense as well.
Yeah.
But just because of how kind of weird the story has been, not bad. It's just kind of I have no idea where the end point is
Yeah.
exactly. Like a lot of people, like there's so many ways you can point, and people are pointing in all sorts of directions. I just don't know which one's which. But I mean, yeah, I mean, it's definitely something that could happen. Hot take, mate. Hot take.
Hot.
That's what this video is all about.
Fresh out the oven, mate. Fresh out of the oven. Go on.
I'm gonna go with my second one, mate, and I've got Hangman defeats Kenny Omega. I've tweeted this one out. I've tweeted about 18 different theories between Hangman and Kenny Omega, so that when one of them happens, and they'll probably do something way better than any of the ones I've ever done. I've tweeted out, but when one of them happens, or if one of them happens, I can then be like, yeah, mate, genius, genius. But basically, one of these is Hangman, and it's kind of again, I don't really have a preference. I just want the story to be good and make sense because ultimately they can go so many different ways that make sense and tell a really good story. And I'm going to make a point here about Hangman. A lot of his insecurity came from like feeling like a lot of people were saying that Kenny Meg was like carrying the team. It's all Kenny Meg is the star and he's the and the Hangman's just there. And so I kind of never want, or not never, but part of me doesn't want Hangman to lose this, and this is part of like how this is maybe one of the best babyface characters ever because it's one match where like Kenny Omega probably should be winning, but I really, really, really don't want Hangman to lose. Um, and even though I really like Kenny Omega as well, even though his character I hate at the moment, um, yeah, it's one of these things where I really don't want him to lose. And so there is power in having him lose and kind of having him hit that rock bottom and stuff. So there's absolutely a story to tell there. But there's also a way of having him hit rock bottom in another way, whilst always kind of showing and it always being prevalent that Hangman was always on Kenny's level.
Hmm.
But also, you can equally say that just by them having a competitive match and Hangman getting a little bit unlucky at some point, and that being the way to end it. Um, but yeah, so basically, what I'm going with for my hot take though is Hangman defeats Kenny Omega. He'll face Moxley at some point in a very respectable match. You can have them like cutting promos just in a bar together, just being like, "Look, man," but Moxley, it being a very friendly rivalry kind of thing.
Hmm.
And then Moxley eventually defeating Hangman. Potentially, you could have influence from Kenny Omega or even the Young Bucks if they've turned heel by that point. That can kind of influence that. Kenny Omega beats Moxley at Revolution. I'm really diluting it because I don't want to just. It's quite a long thread I wrote on Twitter. It's over there somewhere
Hmm.
if you are interested enough to go and find it. Um, but yeah, and then basically you have this kind of thing of Moxley kind of galvanizing Hangman. So they do a tag match against the Bucks. Maybe they do a tag match against Kenny Omega and one of the Bucks or something like that.
Yeah.
Little things that can help build up Hangman. Um, all building to Moxley versus Hangman again in what could be like a number one contenders match or something. Again, a friendly thing, but this time
Yep.
Hangman gets the win over Moxley.
Yep.
Um, and it's interesting. The reason I picked Moxley and why I picked that out is because like throughout the four guys who've been or were entangled for a long time until Pac left were Omega, Hangman, Moxley, and Pac. And it's
Yep.
kind of like it's kind of what I kind of envision as the four cornerstones of the singles division, at least in the title picture, because Cody's not in that. And so there's all these little things, and like you can build year-long stories and little threads. And this relationship between Hangman and Moxley, having been opponents last year and kind of growing a mutual respect and stuff. But Moxley kind of, we've seen him take it on with like Darby Allin and Will Hobbs and stuff. He kind of becomes Daddy Moxley or something like that.
Yeah.
Could do that for Hangman. So it's again, it's something where I'm like, I'm not by any means saying this absolutely has to happen, but it's something, a direction that I would really like to see. And then in that number one contenders match, obviously Hangman then gets the win, and then Moxley's like, go and get him, and then that kind of gives Hangman the push to actually then go and beat Omega. But alternatively, you could argue that that actually works better if Hangman loses in the first place, and you just develop that Moxley and Hangman relationship in a different way potentially, or not at all, as could be absolutely fine as well. But yeah, it's
Oh.
just a little thing because I think a lot of people are expecting Omega to win. Maybe an interesting way to switch the books, but also tell a really interesting story. So there's that.
No, I agree. I'm fully on that, to be honest. Especially when I saw the promo with Omega that we recently see on
The
Dynamite last.
one, yeah,
Yeah, it really, because I don't know, like the company and whoever's booking this, Tony and that, they're going to be very aware that people think Kenny's up winning this. And
mm,
I'm not one for subverting expectations just for the sake of it, because I'm
yeah,
just not a fan of that. It's just
yeah, for
not the right
sure.
thing to do. But at the end of the day, you are subverting the expectations. But in addition, you are enhancing the story
Yeah,
regardless, and you're taking it into a different direction that people wouldn't expect, which is the right kind of subverting expectations.
yeah.
So I'm
You want like a plot twist to make sense, not just a moment for the sake of shocking fans, don't you?
yeah, and I think it definitely would because you kind of want Kenny Omega to reach that to really hit that tipping point because we've seen him on the edge of a move. We've seen him
Yeah.
go flip out, going into cars, and going all that
This
stuff.
this is another point I forgot to mention, but Kenny Omega, it would really give him a proper motivation to become the cleaner and just be like, I have to, like, if it's just like that thing of he can't quite get it done, like he lost to Jericho at the first Double or Nothing, and it's kind of been a thing where he can't quite get to that title. If he loses this, then it's kind of like the thing is he's already embraced some of that character, so in his head he might already be there, so that can justify the win as well. And
Mm,
we can see the proper turn and or becoming the cleaner. He might not even become the full cleaner just because he might not fully want to just rehash a part of his past.
mm,
It's like one of those things. It's like you can always let people down, and he might just be this kind of like wrestling god character now at this point, which is basically what he's playing currently.
yeah,
And like, but in the fact that he very much knows that he is, and so he got all that in his entrance and stuff as well.
yeah,
But if you were going to have him a full on turn, something like Hangman defeating him and then Kenny kind of taking that opportunity for the title away from Hangman when he does face Mox or whatever, which then pisses Mox off because he's like, don't get him on business, and then they build to a title match between those two, and it's a longer build to Hangman Omega. I mean, again, it's just another way you can go. Really, I would. I don't want to pin my colors to a mast on any of these stories because it's like, again, they'll probably just do something better anyway.
Nah, I think it's strong though. I think that's stronger than the. I think Kenny just winning because the thing is, what people are desperate for is just Kenny being what he used to be, right? But to be
Yeah,
honest, I get the impression that Kenny has very little interest in rehashing stuff that he's already done. I think he might be interested in going ahead in revisiting some of
yeah,
it, but I don't think
teasing
he
it more. Than,
yeah, but I think he because otherwise they would have just but I don't know you can never really know because that's to happen in the future. We can't really predict that as of right now.
yeah,
But
and we don't know where his heads are or anything like that.
exactly. But I get that because obviously he's hinted at the cleaner. I mean, we've seen that with the brushes and
Yeah,
it's so bizarre.
mhm.
Um,
But it's so on the nose that makes me think that like maybe he's
Exactly.
teasing it, and maybe it'll just become. I kind of what I want to see is like more of just this wrestling god Omega, but an actual turn on Hangman, which could be informed by the fact that he was beaten by him or something. He could even do it straight after the match. He just like, you know, this is one instance where a roll up might be really good, and then Omega Hangman's won. Hangman's like, whoa, I fucking won, mate, and then Omega just like nails him with a V trigger and beats the crap out of him, and then
It just motivates that turn so much more, doesn't it? Rather than just
yeah.
beating him and just being like, haha, look at me, I'm going to beat you up now because that's how good I am. And it's just
But
like, yeah, that's
then,
fine. And that works
well,
for
I
his
mean,
character.
he doesn't have to beat him up either, and like it could be a thing of he beats him, and then he's like, yes, I really am the wrestling god. I can beat anyone, blah blah blah. And then when he
Mm,
beats Moxley, that ego gets so equally. You could still go that way. Like it's they've crafted it very well, in that there is like a million different directions you can go in. A lot of them do make sense. Everyone's always going to have their preferences. I just don't know what my preference is,
yeah.
but I would like to see Hangman win, obviously.
Well, there we are. And third, final hot take from me here. Not really much of a hot take, 'cause I'm sure we're all going to be in agreement here. I want John Silver to win, right?
It's a
But
hot take in that it's probably not going to
it's
happen.
probably not going to happen, right? It's
Yeah.
fortunate enough that the guy's on the bloody main card out of all things. We were all surprised he was on the freaking buy-in, never the main card. So
Yeah.
credit for that. We've seen very little of Brody Lee in recent times. So what I would love to see, and we mentioned this before, and admittedly we did this video in fairly short notice, so my inspiration has been a little bit lackluster. So I am rehashing things that I have previously felt more so, and that is I would
Mm.
love to see a Brody Lee John Silver tag team sort of run. Um, Granted, you've got Alex Reynolds, and I get that, but to be honest, I think if you've got something there in John's, you've got something there with so much potential. You've got a guy
Mm.
like Brody Lee who's established, who's really proved his worth in being an
Yeah.
absolute dick and entertaining, and all these variety of things that he's really proven since his time in AEW. Utilize him, and he doesn't need to be in a title picture. It can be about Brody Lee and John Silver, and essentially what you'd kind of be doing is somewhat touching upon the same water as what Kenny and Paige were doing in regards to maybe they're finding a bit of success. But the thing is, the turning point here is because, of course, these two have very limited chemistry. The idea here is rather than them having unlimited chemistry with one another, it's the fact
Mm.
that they're struggling with chemistry, and through notable hurdles, maybe they finally get that tag team title opportunity. But ultimately,
Yeah.
it's John Silver that wastes that opportunity and effectively is thrown, but he's thrown away from Brody, like by Brody, for
Yeah.
letting the entire team down and all that side of things. And ultimately, all this would result in is a John Silver versus Brody Lee program. And I'm telling you now, the internet wrestling fan base would go wild for a
Yeah.
program like that. You know, it's I haven't got very in depth of it because it's gonna be so. It's gonna be a program like this is gonna be would be really interesting because you've got the seriousness, albeit very comedic, but the seriousness of Brody Lee's character, and then
Yeah.
you've got to mesh that with wherever John Silver's character is. You
It's one
know,
of those things, like it'd be so unpredictable. Like you'd be wanting to see what they did next week, kind of thing.
exactly.
Every time, I know being the elite as well, but like you want to see, like especially if you started it off, they're getting a little bit of success, and then Brody's like, ah, you're not such a loser, blah blah, blah. And then that like boosts John Silver's ego. Then maybe he starts,
But that's what I mean.
taking it to heart, and that leads to their downfall ultimately. And then Brody just like murders him,
Yeah, yeah,
and
yeah.
it's a thing as well. Like it makes Brody look amazing because he'll basically be carrying these matches for the sake of the story and for the sake of realism because of how big he is and how well established he is. Whereas John Silver's very much the weaker kind of guy. So it'll make Brody look like an absolute monster, and it's a way of doing that without having to be like, well, why isn't he the world champion if he's such a monster? Which is the problem with like monsters in AEW, like Lance Archer. The reason they can barely have him on TV is because it's like, I mean, if you build up his win record constantly, you're just going to have him in the title picture constantly. But he's not really got the charisma or the name or any of that to really be. the head of your company, and that's kind of like the problem. I think Brody does. I would love to see him as world champion. He's gone ahead of my expectations, but this could be something to buy him some time for whenever you
But
will
that's for me
one day going to do that.
because we're all expecting like Omega to have the title, maybe Page, maybe
Yeah,
Pac down the line, and no one's really
MJF.
yeah. So like, I mean, it's really down the line for something like that for Brody, unfortunately, at least in our
Yeah,
visions, and that can obviously change because of course we're not the one writing the books, but
yeah,
yeah, I think in terms of motivation, in terms of progression, in terms of building up a different star, someone who is, in the grand scheme of things, younger.
mm.
I want to say John Silver's 27, 28, something along those
He's in
lines.
his 20s. Yeah,
So, and at the end of the day, right, if people love him, then don't do a Rusev and just
yeah,
don't strike when the iron's hot. I think that's the term that people use.
yeah.
And so from this moment on, run with it. Just absolutely run with it. It will be incredible TV.
I think for the match as well, going back to that point about Orange Cassidy and John Silver, obviously I think John Silver beating Cassidy clean is probably a stretch, given that Cassidy's just beating Jericho and he's going
But
toe to toe
outwit
with.
him. Outwit him or something.
I think it's a thing of like Brody can come and like get involved because obviously he has that problem with Orange Cassidy as well from their previous match, and then you could revisit that, and then through that, Brody could help John Silver, and then John Silver has been doing this thing where he's constantly trying to help Brody, and he usually does help at least distract the other guy or something like in that match with Cody.
Yeah.
He took Cody's eye off the ball twice, and then Brody was able to get the advantage and stuff, and it's a really good way of like doing. And again, even if you didn't go down the tag team route, you could go down the route of then Brody's like, well, I want you in my corner every time because you're doing a good job, blah blah
Yeah.
blah. And then it's just a way of like getting that dynamic basically, because that's the main thing that's important, getting that dynamic. And then when it breaks, and then you see Brody go and unleash him, and again you just see that.
Well,
Not
let's
that there's
try. I
particularly
mean,
a bright side of Brody, but
what
you
could be
see that
better?
dark
Yeah,
side.
what could be arguably better is the idea of maybe it isn't so much a tag team thing, but maybe it is like a Brody going for a main title thing. Because
Yeah,
ultimately, what we've discussed is that he's probably not going to have the title, but that's not going to stop him from getting a
yeah.
title opportunity down the line.
And if John Silver eventually costs him or something,
Exactly. So maybe
yeah,
say if he's taken on someone who does have a stable around him. So say if it is Omega and he does have the Bucks or something or other
yeah,
like that, or someone else in his corner, be
yeah.
it Nakazawa as just a random example. I don't know,
That
right?
would be sick. You could have Nakazawa versus John Silver. That'd be too
Yeah,
good.
yeah, yeah. But like ultimately, it'll be a thing of like, right, you can only have one guy in your corner because maybe both guys have got a lot of people in their respective corners, and they're only allowed one. And then
Yeah.
out of everyone for Brody, he would pick John Silver because obviously, as we've talked about, it's been well documented over the previous months that John Silver has ultimately helped him and has been integral to his success. And then at the moment where he probably needed him the most, he lets him
He fucked
down.
it.
Yeah.
I'd love it as well if it was something not even like he's like trying to distract Kenny, and it's just he like just tries to take the spotlight, like he just jumps
Yeah.
up on the ring post, goes to the hard cam, starts flexing and stuff, and that just distracts Brody, and then Kenny takes advantage. It was like one of those things that like again, people don't really like these distraction finishes and stuff. But when you do them right, when it number one is entertaining and number two makes sense for the story, it just fits and it works so well. And that would be a great example of that. But yeah,
Yeah.
I mean, yeah, I want it to happen so badly.
But either way, technically, with what we said, he doesn't need to win. But I think to
No,
further establish what would be kind of nice is he does get a win because I love him. He's great. And
yeah,
it would sort of make sense as to why Brody would be like, you know what, I want you in my corner side of things, or I want you beside me in a tag team title run, whatever decision it may be. So
yeah,
yeah,
no, exactly. Okay, I'll go with my final hot take then, and it's kind of a 2-1. It's kind of 2-1 because it'll go one of these two ways. But one of them is really out there and it's just not going to happen. But I'm just gonna, because of the way they built it and the way that everything's gone on, I really want Eddie Kingston to beat John Moxley, even though that definitely shouldn't happen and all that. Um, I don't really have a justification for that. It's just Like the way Eddie Kingston has done it, I feel a lot of sympathy for him, even though he's the heel. He's done it in such a smart way where like he remains to be such a dickhead, but he's managed to like make you believe that he would actually have these motivations rather than just, oh, I'm just an asshole.
Yeah.
Um, and that's why, and I just think like from a psychological point of view, from a obviously a talking point of view, Eddie Kingston is just one of the best I've ever seen, and it's just like outstanding. It's absolutely world title material. What lets him down, I guess, is his in ring ability, which isn't bad. He's a great brawler and stuff, but he kind of stumbles around the ring and he's just like punch you here and stuff.
Yeah.
Maybe not what you'd expect if you were world champion. So I can't really justify that. But one thing I can justify is in this being an I Quit match. One thing I really don't want to see, but is kind of inevitable that we're going to see, is Eddie Kingston hit that rock bottom and quit. And in that, I don't know, how can you not turn him face? I mean, the example is like that turns him into the Mad King, which is kind of something that he's made his name off, and he just goes mental, and that kind of makes him spiral somewhat. But ultimately, you could have this moment where Moxley makes him quit, and then you've got those two in the ring. Eddie Kingston almost in John Moxley's arm. Again, I said this on our stream last night, but you could, if you really want to lay it on thick, you could have a little tear in Moxley's eye. Kingston almost basically almost dead. Both of them like absolutely killed each other.
They're just broken.
And then out comes the bastard, the best heel in the company for sure, if not maybe the world. Just comes out, just murders them both, and it's just like he's got all the motivation to do it with Eddie Kingston, with the whole death triangle thing, and you can build a massive story off that, which you can fantasy book however you want. I won't go into it now, just because I mean there's just 1,000 ways you can go, but ultimately just be great stuff. And Pac versus Eddie Kingston in the promo battles and stuff, that might be the only thing that can top John Moxley versus Eddie Kingston in a promo battle. What was the? And then the other thing is he also has a lot of motivation to go against Moxley for the title as well, and that could be a really good TV feud, which can be on a stopgap towards what is hopefully Moxley versus Omega at Revolution. And Pac is the one opponent I've really wanted to see Moxley have. So if you had Eddie Kingston kind of almost turn face in that kind of, he's just there, and Moxley's like, you can see it in Moxley's face, and that is kind of what turns Eddie Kingston's face, or one of the things. And the other thing is Pac just beating the crap out of both of them. You could even have Pac with the Lucha Bros as well. So like,
Yeah.
maybe the Lucha Bros, because there's justification for them to turn on Kingston. They'll be like, look, you're trying to turn us against each other. You're calling him your best friend. You made me give up the spot when I felt I could have wrestled. You have got the Lucha Bros facing each other next week, so you could have a split in the Lucha Bros. So maybe both of them come down to stop Pac, but then Ray Phoenix turns on what's his name, Penta.
Yeah.
And because Penta's the one who's with Eddie Kingston, I was trying to make sure I didn't mess that up. And then you could have that. Although the problem with that is the dream match out of Pac versus one of the Lucha Bros is probably Ray Phoenix. But I mean, you could do that down the line as well. But yeah, and then that is a way of doing that. I don't know where exactly it goes, but basically, bottom line is Eddie Kingston turns face in some way, or hopefully wins the title. But also hopefully not, because that probably shouldn't happen. But
that is us and our 6 hot takes.
Yeah.
Mate, I've been enjoying cooking with you. I'm just.
We've been cooking up some hot takes, mate.
Oh,
we're going to
mate.
be watching Full Gear, of course, on our Twitch live stream, which you can come and join us for, of course, and all that good stuff.
Yep. As always, we'll be watching Full Gear, as Gareth has said, and you can be notified of that on our Twitter. But it's going to be the Twitch link that's down below, and it's going to be at the time of Full Gear anyway. So if you're interested, by all means, join us there. But anyway, thank you very much for joining us, and take care.
Goodbye.